1 second.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. All right. Today is Daf Nun Tes in Meseches Psachim. We left off at the bottom. We were discussing the Talmid ben Arbayim. So Taner Rabbanan, 2 lines in the bottom. Talmid Kaidem LePesach. So basically, we discussed sort of throughout the day. They have different korbanos. They have the korbanos that are upon the tzibur, and then there's mostly korbanos that are brought by individuals, such as Nadarim, Devos, Chatas, whatever they're supposed to bring. And then, so Talmid Kaidem LePesach. So at the end of the day, we have Talmid ben Arbayim comes in the end of the day, but there's actually a couple other things that go on after the Talmid. There's just no actual korbanos besides Talmid Kaidem LePesach. So the Karban Talmid in the afternoon is before the Karban Pesach, which is basically the, our Mishnah was telling us, right? How early in the Talmid in order to give us time to do the Karban Pesach afterwards. So the Karban Pesach is the only sacrifice that comes afterwards. And Pesach Kaidem LeKetairas. And then there is the Ketairas, the incense that is burnt in the over there in the Mikdash. That is so basically goes Talmid, the Karban Pesach, then Kaidem LeKetairas, that's before the Ketairas. And Ketairas kadems the Neros. And the Ketairas is burnt before the Neros are lit and remain lit throughout the night. So that was the order, right? According to this Bryce, we'll have a Bryce which flips up a couple of them. But Talmid, Pesach, Ketairas, Neros. All right? Why? So the Gemara says, so Yechur Dover Shnemar Baba Erev Ben Arbayim Ledover Shalonemar Baba Erev Ella Ben Arbayim Bilvat. So therefore, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make later that which says Ba'erev and Ben Arbayim, which says both. There's 2 different psukim by Karban Pesach, which mentions those 2 terms, Ba'erev and Ben Arbayim. So that's telling us it's really late in the evening, in the afternoon, versus something by the Talmud. It just says Ben Arbayim. Right, so therefore you do the Karban Pesach. So Ihachi, if that's the case, Ketairas v'Neros Nami Nikul Pesach. If that's the case, let's go ahead and in addition to having the Talmud before the Karban Pesach, let's say also the Ketairas and the Neros. Why? Yachur Davar Shnemar Baba Erev. Same reason. Yachur Davar Shnemar Baba Erev uBen Arbayim LeDavar Shaloi Never Ba Elo Ben Arbayim Bilvad. Right. We should have something. The Karban Pesach comes later because it says Ba'erev and Ben Arbayim by that, as opposed to the by the Neros. We'll soon see. It only says right Ben Arbayim. So you say over there. Shani Hasam, Dimitri Rahman Oso. There's a word Oso. There's a word Oso that exclusive tells comes later. That says the Ketairas and the Neros come after the Pesach. Why? The tiny Lunar Bryce. It says Me'erev ad Boker. It says over there regarding the menorah, it should be lit from Me'erev ad Boker. So Tain La Midasa. Shetei Delekas Me'erev ad Boker. So basically, it's telling you how much oil to put in. That should be able to be lit from the evening and the last into the morning. And Davaracher and Alimut Einlecha Avodah Sheksheira Me'erev ad Boker Elazu Bilvad. This is the only thing that goes from the evening to the morning. So my time. What's the reason? Amarka, the pasuk says Yarech Oso Aaron Uvna Me'erev ad Boker. So it says Aaron says do that one. This is the one that goes Me'erev ad Boker, right? Nothing later. This should be one with Me'erev ad Boker. So Oisa Me'erev ad Boker, Ve'ein Davar Acher Me'erev ad Boker. Nothing else should go Me'erev ad Boker. Ve'iskish Ketairas Neros. And then we make a hekish because the psukim, they're written next to each other. So and therefore we learn the Ketairas from the Neros, just like the Neros, nothing is supposed to come afterwards. So to the Ketairas, which is with the Neros, also to nothing else should come after that. So that was one Bryce, right? Pretty straightforward in terms of the order. Talmid, Pesach, or the Karban Pesach, the Ketairas, Neros. Now, the Tanya, Kikash, we have a Bryce, however, which is a contradiction. It says, Talmid Kaidem LeKetairas, Ketairas Kademes LeNeros, the Neros Kademes LePesach. It takes the Karban Pesach as opposed to being the third to last thing, right? It was, Talmid, Pesach, Ketairas, Neros, and it puts the Karban Pesach all the way at the end. It says do the Talmid, then do the Ketairas, then do the Neros, like on a regular day, and then do the Karban Pesach. Insert it over there. It says Ketairas V'Neros Kademes Pesach. Why? Yachar Davar Shnemar Ba'erev uBen Arbayim LeDavar Shalonemar Ben Arbayim Bilvad. Why? Because by the Karban Pesach, as we said earlier, it says Ba'erev and also says Ben Arbayim. So therefore, that should come last. Versus everything else only says Ben Arbayim. Vaksiv oso. Didn't we learn earlier the previous brayso that said the word oso to teach us that oso, this is the only thing that should go from night until the morning. Nothing else should be after the neros, right? Which and learns together with the ketairos. So now that teaches us something else. That teaches another halacha by the ketairos, which is performed on the inside when they burn on the inside. So it says, it says over there, then when Aaron, when he goes ahead and he lights the candles, he should go ahead and light it, right? Maybe it's teaching you that first you do the neros, and then afterwards you go ahead and you light the ketairos, right? So therefore, it says, therefore it says the word oso. If that's the case, so if that's the case, why does it say over there bein arbaim? So hakikoma rachmana beidan demadlakas neiros te miktara kataris. It means that no, it's not telling you that the kataris comes after the neiros. Rather, it's coming to teach you that at the time when you go ahead and you kindle the menorah, the kataris should already be lit. Fine. So we still have the brisa. So that brisa argued, and therefore we said. So therefore, that brisa argued in terms of where the Korban Pesach is inserted, but everyone holds it goes the Tamid, Ketairos, Neiros, and the question is, where do you go ahead and insert the Korban Pesach? Fine. Taner Rabbanan, middle of the page on Nun Testament Aleph. It says, Ein l'chol davar shekodim l'tamid shel shachar el Ketairos bilvad. There's nothing that becomes from the morning Tamid, which is brought in the morning. We said this Tamid brought in the morning, Tamid brought in the afternoon. But rather, only the ketairos bilvad, also the incense, also burnt in the morning, in addition to the afternoon. It's done also before the tamid. Shneimar b'boker. It says over there b'boker. V'yukdam ketairos. Remember to be on mute, right? V'yukdam ketairos, right? And therefore ketairos b'davar shneimar b'boker. The chsi v'ikter la'aron ketairos samim b'boker l'davar shlo nemar ba'ela boker echa. Right, and therefore, since it says boker by tamid, but it says boker by the ketairos, so therefore the ketairos becomes first, and then the tamid is brought. And there's nothing that comes after the tamid in the afternoon, but rather only the ketairos and neros. So everything is done basically those ketairos, tamid shel shachar, all the other avodas in the day, then the tamid ben arbayim, ketairos, and then finally with the neros. Pesach, so nothing comes after the tamid shel ben arbayim. Ela ketairos, the neros, Pesach, and the Korban Pesach, u'mechusa kippur erev Pesach, and a person who is missing his kapara on erev Pesach. Now, as a person, let's say he was a zav or matzora, some other thing, tuma.
The rule of tadir she'eno tadir kodem, shouldn't it apply? So it should be the tamid, then the ktoret and nerot, and then Pesach, no? Tadir she'eno tadir kodem.
Well, according to one brisa, it was right. According to one brisa, is what, but that is a general rule. But when you have psukim that can tell you different in terms of when the psukim can tell you the order, that would override the general rule. But like you're saying, you're right. You have two things to do in front of you, and you have no reason for it to do one versus the other. Then you would say tadir kodem, right? Good question. But over here, if there's a pasuk that says this comes later, this comes earlier, therefore you have to go that would override that general concept. Good question. But over here, so we said there's one exception also. It says a korban right afterwards. If the person is on erev Pesach, he wants to go ahead and eat his korban Pesach, and this is his final day of Tuma, and all he has to do is bring his korban in that day, and therefore at night he's ready to go ahead and eat the korban Pesach, but he didn't have an opportunity to go ahead and bring his final korbanos. So what does he do? And the Tamid Shel Ben Arbayim was already brought. He could even bring it then, right? It says. He's allowed to go ahead and bring it, even though it's after the Tamid Shel Ben Arbayim. He can bring his personal karbanos, right? His chatas, his olah, his asham, whatever's need to be brought for him to no longer become tamid because it's on the 8th day, and therefore he can go ahead and enjoy his Korban Pesach that evening. And Rabbi Shmuel ben Asher, Rabbi Yochanan ben Baruch Omer, af mechusa kippurim b'shari mas hashana. Even other karbanos, right? Other days of the year, he didn't bring his korban till the end. He came late, and all of a sudden, right? He has to wait another day to eat his kachim. So it says Rabbi Shab ben Rabbi Cham broke up. He's allowed to go ahead and bring it now. Now, so the reason why we say that the Tamid Ben Abayim comes at the end because it says Hashlama, that should be finished. That should be the final one. So it makes sense to the pasuk Hashlama, but we also have a person doesn't need his Korban Pesach. He's Chayiv Kores, right? It's one of the few ones. A person, if he doesn't do his Chayiv Kores, so it makes sense that why it would override that special rule. Why should one override the other? Right? You have an asay to say the Tamid Shel Ben Arbayim is the last korban, and then you have an asay to go ahead and eat kachim. Why do we say the kachim, the requirement for him to eat the kachim at night in a regular Tuesday, right, in the middle of the winter, would override bringing a korban after the Tamid Ben Arbayim? So Rav Chizda hacha bechatas ha'oif askinan she'en mizbeach eladam. So we said that the Tamid Shel Ben Arbayim is the last of the afternoon because that's the last thing you offer on the mizbeach, right? You apply the blood. You put you put the parts on it and it burns in the mizbeach. Over here, in order a person is able many korbanos, a person is able to become tahor. How? By bringing a chatas off. A chatas off is not burnt on the mizbeach. Only the blood is applied to it. So since applying the blood is not in violation of offering a korban after the Tamid Ben Arbayim, therefore it's okay. And Rav Papa Amar afilu tema b'chatas behema. Even if we're talking about an animal which normally gets burnt on top. Ma'ala umalina b'rosh hamizbeach. What do? Unique rule. You go ahead, you offer it, you do the shchita, you apply to do the zrika, and then instead of burning it, right, completely burning it, you go ahead and you leave it on the mizbeach, right, to go ahead and basically have it consumed tomorrow. So you leave it over, right? You leave it on the mizbeach. So first of all, it doesn't make sense because if this is the only the chatas. What about his asham? Right, a lot of these karbanos, in order to become tahor, you need multiple karbanos. Okay, so that's one. That's his chatas. What about his asham? I veik asham. So bishul Rav Papa hainu demalin la. This works okay according to Rav Papa because we're talking about when let's say he already did it. Rav Chizda, but according to Rav Chizda, right, and Rav Chizda was the opinion who says chatas ha'of, right, that goes on the mizbeach. So he says over there his asham has to go on. So if you say that his chat is just sitting on there, so okay, we'll say the asham is still also it just sits on there, right? But if you say we're talking about a bird, so the asham, right, is an animal that has to be offered on there. So must be that the asham was already brought and he just didn't bring his chatas. So what about his ola? Right now, first of all, if you're going to say, okay, well, maybe he doesn't have to bring his ola, but Tanya, we learn in the Brisa, just like you have to bring a chatas and asham in order to become tahar for a person's mechusik Purim. So too he has to bring his ola. And so, and if you're going to say, okay, we'll say just like he already brought his asham, he already brought his ola, and he's just forgot his chatas. And can you go ahead and offer your ola before your chatas, right? The chatas rishon, but time going to price of he kriv es asher the chatas rishona. It says over there, and he offers the chatas rishona. So what's coming to teach over there? Im lamech to hey kodemis laola. If you're coming to teach you that the ola comes first, harik farnema, right? It says vesasheni yasa ola kamishpat. Right? It says over there that the second one you'll do the ola properly. So ela zebana av. Rather, it teaches you the other places. Lekol chatos sheyu kodmos lekol olos habos imyan. It's coming to teach you a rule that the general rule is you bring your chatas and then you bring your ola. So to over here, first you bring your chatas, then you bring your ola. So if we're talking about a case where he didn't bring his chatas yet, and he has to bring his ola afterwards, it couldn't be a case where he already offered his ola because the ola has to come after the chatas. So we go back to the question: how can you go ahead in a regular week, right? Nothing to do with Erev Pesach. if he didn't bring it, you want to say, how does he offer his ola? The kaimel under afilu chatas oif kodemas la'ola, and we learn even a chatas oif has to come before the ola is brought. So what's he going to do about his ola? Right? Because that was the olas behema. Samara Rava Shani olas mitzara derachmana. No, the ola of the mitzara is different. The Rachman Amar, the Torah says, right? Turn the page. Va'aleh hakohen es ha'ola. Right? Shalu kfar. It says over there that was offered by the Kohen. It says that even if the ola was offered first, it does work by a mitzara. So therefore, over here we could be talking about a case of where the ola was already offered, and therefore all he has is left is a chatas of, and therefore the chatas of is just sprinkled, and therefore nothing has to be burnt on the mizbeach after the tamid ben arbaim, and therefore it's okay in a regular day because it's just an asay versus an in this case he's not violating the asay of this should be the tamid ben arbaim should be the last thing you burn on the mizbeach all day. Fine. Top line and nun testament days. So Amarle Rav Shimon bar Abba l'Rav Papa. So the deed chodamarta mala umalina b'rosh Hashem mizbeach. According to you, Rav Papa, who says that we talk about a case of where, let's say, he does the shechita, he does the zrika, and then he puts it on his back in order for it to wait, right, until the next day. So kaimi v'avadi milsa the kohanim to also b'dei takala, right? What's going to happen? The Kohanim they have all these different parts on there and karbanos on the mizbeach, and every evening they go ahead and they basically they burn off and they clear off, they burn everything that's remaining up there. They're going to see this burnt, and even though it's only partially brought because it was they didn't burn it, they're going to assume it's like all the other limbs and all the other parts, and they're going to go ahead and burn it. The savi diyomahu d'gasla kature, and therefore they're going to think, okay, this is already offered during this day. This is supposed to be burnt now. It was done. They're thinking it's like everything else, which is done before the Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. But in truth is, it was brought after the Tamid Ben Arbaim. So if it's brought after the Tamid Ben Arbaim and it's burnt Ben Arbaim, then it's a problem. So the answer is, Amarle, Kohanim's reasoning. The Kohanim, they're aware that there's special circumstances if it is sprinkled, if the Zrika and the Shechita is done after the Tamid, therefore they know not to touch it and to leave it there.
Doesn't Lena Apostles coach him, right? So is this a special, they supposed to go out to the base of Sreifa, right? So how could they bring something up to the Mizbeach and say, we'll do Lena?
If you look at the Rashi on Nun Testament Aleph, maybe, I don't know, 20 lines about it, or 15 lines from the bottom, it says, Malo Melina Barosh Mizbeach. You go ahead and leave it on top of the Mizbeach. So it says, the pasuk says, "V'hikrivu lifnei Hashem v'chiper Allah u'lomachar yaktirenu." The next day he'll burn it. Le'achar Tamid Shel Shachar, after Tamid Shel Shachar. So basically, nothing comes between, right? The Bein Arbaim one afternoon versus the morning. The Lina eina poselis barosh hamizbeach, and Lina does not apply to things that are on the mizbeach itself, right? Kedamar bezvachas says bezvachim perek mizbeach. Right. So it says over there. So Lina does apply, but it doesn't apply if something is on the mizbeach itself. Lina does not apply, and therefore it's okay for it to go ahead and be burnt tomorrow morning after the Tamid Shel Shachar.
That's why we need to learn Rashi, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, I got to read all inside. I know Rabbi Schwartz used to do it, but it was a very long shir. It was like an hour 15 minutes. So fine, or I should have said it out, right? But yes, good question, and Rashi, saw the question, and Rashi answered the question. Fine. Now, so you say. So Amarle Rav Ashi the Rav Khan, Amarle, and some say Rav Huna Braid, Rav Nasman, Rav Papa, Vaha Kamadlo, Miskatri Emurin, Kohanilo Masi Achlo Baser. Well, wait, time out. If you don't go ahead and burn, right, then the Kohanim shouldn't be able to go ahead and eat the meat. So in a regular year, should be able to catch a night, and certainly by the Korban Pesach, shouldn't be able to eat Korban Pesach unless the carbon is burnt. Right, the tiny when our Bryce says Yachol Yo Kohanim Rashin because of a Kadim Haktar say Morim. You might think that the Kohanim can go ahead, or that the Balaam go ahead, or the Kohanim can go ahead and eat the shok, right, the thigh and the breast of the animal prior to the burning of the limbs. Tamalei, my difference says over there. V'hiktira koines achelev hamizbecha. He says over there, you go ahead and burn the fats and the parts of the mizbeach, and then they go ahead and eat. So it has to be burnt in order for them to go ahead and be able to eat. The kohanim de lo yachli basar, and as long as the kohanim are not permitted to go ahead and eat their portions that are given to them from every korban, balom is chapri. the owners do not get kapara. If they don't get kapara, they can't eat other kudshim. The tiny little advice that says v'achlu oisam asher kupa kupa bahem. It says over there, and they'll eat it, and then they'll get kapara. Malamet shekohanim oichlim ubali mischaper. So you see over there that once the kohanim are permitted to go ahead and eat, the owners can get then they get kapara. So come back to the question: if you don't burn it, they can't get kapara. If they can't get kapara, then what's the point? If you say you have to burn it, then it violates going over ahead and burning and offering something or burning something on mizbeach after the tamid bein arbaim. So Malay keva deloyev sharasum kamisha nitmo oshavdim. No, we'll say since they're not able to, it's like basically a person. Let's say they offered it, they did the shechita, they applied the blood on the mizbeach, and then all of a sudden it becomes tamei, right, or it gets lost. And what do we say in that case? You might think that if it gets lost or becomes tamei, the rest of the part that was supposed to be burned on the mizbeach, the kohanim can't get the chaz of a shok, right? Therefore, it says it says it will be for them even if it gets lost or tamei. So therefore, they still can eat it, and since they can eat it, the owners get kapara. So too in this case, we'll say it is just like that case, an extreme circumstance, and therefore we will allow kapara to be given to the baalim who bring it. And Rav Kahana, now we've been two separate kashas just from the sugya before we get down to the Mishnah. So Rav Kahana, Rami Ksiv, so he threw, right, Rami literally means to throw, he threw these two psukim together, which seem to be an apparent contradiction. Ksiv, one pasuk says, V'lo yolin chelev chagi ad boker. It says it should remain to the morning. It's ad boker, d'lo yolin ha kol ayla kula yolin. It sounds over there that can go ahead and it could be basically can remain all night on the mizbeach, right? It says over there by the tamid in the morning. It says over there you should offer it on it chalvei shlamim. So aleh hashalim korbanos kulon, right? It says over there only on the morning. Right, only in the morning korban can you have things afterwards, but you can't have anything after the bein arbaim. So we're talking about a case where, in a case of where something was thrown after it, then you can't go ahead and burn it after the. If it was offered before, then you can go ahead and burn it. But if it was, if the blood and it was offered after, then you can't go ahead and burn it after the tamid shel bein arbaim. So basically, it's teaching you that if it was done right between the tamids, right in the day, then it could be burnt at night. But if it was the blood was only thrown, it was only sacrificed after the bein arbaim, then that you can't go ahead and burn throughout the evening. And Rami Rav Safar Rav. So Rav Safar is Kasha Rav. He says Ksiv lo yolin laboker zevach chag Pesach. It says you should not go ahead and leave overnight the year Korban Pesach. La boker lo yolin hakol ayla yolin, but you can leave it at night. And the pasuk says olos Shabbos b'Shabbato, olos chol b'Shabbos, olos chol b'Yontif. So it says over there that you can go ahead and you can burn it all night. But then we have another pasuk that says, when it comes to Shabbos, you only burn a Shabbos offering on Shabbos and not one from chol or chol and Yontif. So if that's the case, so how do you go ahead and you burn by the Korban Pesach, right, later that night if it was brought from the day before? So that was actually Asha to Rabbi Avo, the Shani Le, and he answered over there. We're talking about the reason why it can be burnt into the next day, i.e. on Yontif from the Erev Pesach, is because Erev Pesach was a Shabbos when you're not permitted to go ahead and burn it. Because the fats of Karbanos from Shabbos can be burnt on Yontif. So Amarle, Mishum Dechalve Shabbos Korean B'Yontif Ana Niku V'Nemalei the High Krab Arba Asa Shechali Yes B'Shabbos Udachsiv. So we're going to insist that because of, in that case, we're going to insist that this pasuk is specifically talking about when you allow to go ahead and burn it the next day or in the evening on Shabbos is referring to a case where Erev Pesach was Shabbos. Similarly, said leave the pasuk alone because you have no other way to explain the pasuk. Basically, the pasuk it has to be explained this way. So therefore, it's not a kasha to say, the pasuk is only referring to when you burn it the next day, right? Is indeed talking about when that is Shabbos, and therefore and when Erev Pesach is Shabbos, and therefore you're permitted to go ahead and burn it on the Saturday night on Pesach because it was originally brought on a Shabbos. All right, we'll stop here at the Mishnah tomorrow. I guess the new Mishnah is Sugya, and we'll pick up from here. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we'll see you all tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem. Take care.
Bye, Mishnah.
Bye-bye.
Thank